Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Daredevil issue number 200, cover dated November 1983. There's no cover caption here, no cover caption required. We have Daredevil standing over, well, it looks like he's broken Bullseye's neck there on the cover, and it looks like it's also in the aftermath of a vicious, brutal physical fight. So you can see the level of damage that Daredevil has taken to his costume, that his forearm is in a cast, and he's gripping the billy club there, which looks like it's covered in blood, and we infer that it is Bullseye's blood. Now, there is a little gesture there where the hand is moving, so the implication of the violence of a broken neck is offset by those little motion lines there, which convey that Bullseye's still alive. But it still is a pretty brutal cover, and definitely John Byrne leaning into the fact that he is drawing Daredevil, a character that at this point was synonymous with Frank Miller's version, and Frank Miller a good friend of John Byrne's at the time. So a little bit of competition here, but also a little bit of drawing on the Frank Miller aesthetic, the heavy blacks and use of silhouette and shadow there on Daredevil. So a pretty eye-catching cover, and it promises a brutal showdown between these two bitter enemies. Let's open this one up to the splash page. Now, the splash page after the Byrne cover is disappointing, if I'm honest with you. The title of the story is Redemption. Whose redemption will it be? The creator credits are down here at the bottom of the page. Denny O'Neill, story, William Johnson, pencils, Danny Bulandi, inks, Joe Rosen, letters, and Christy Shield on the colours. Yeah, so I have been praising William Johnson in terms of his improvement issue to issue. This is his fourth issue on the title. He's a young artist. But this is definitely a splash page that is underwhelming, and it has me wondering whether there was time for it to go by the art editor, who at that time in Marvel Comics was John Romita Sr., because I'm sure he would have given William Johnson a lesson in making this look a lot more dynamic. But William Johnson doesn't really have any Jack Kirby influence in his art, and that potentially is the reason why we get images like this that are anatomically correct, well drawn, but a bit boring for a Marvel comic of the Bronze Age. Anyway, into the story. Bullseye says he's back. Whose carpeted office has he walked into? Let's turn the page. Of course, it's Kingpin. So Bullseye's back in New York. Kingpin behind his desk there. He doesn't even get up. He says, "Indeed you are, Bullseye. I see your sojourn in Japan was successful. You appear fully recovered from your injuries." So Bullseye gets straight to business. "Yeah, good as new. Guess you know why I'm here." And the Kingpin knows exactly. "You want your old job." So Bullseye's confident. "Right, you need a hitman and I'm the best there ever was." But the Kingpin contradicts him. "Second best. Elektra was better. However, that does not matter. The important thing is your unfinished business, Daredevil." And Bullseye says, "Hey Kingpin, no problem. I left him back there with the Japanese. They were going to take care of him for me." And he sits down on Kingpin's desk, opens up his cigar humidor to help himself to one of them. And the Kingpin continues and says, "Surely you do not believe they did. Surely you do not hold Daredevil's abilities in such low esteem. Not you of all people." So Bullseye says, okay, he gave me a couple of rough times, but that's history. He shows up, I'll handle him. "You'll have to," says the Kingpin. So that's our opening, and then we get this interesting exterior shot of the Kingpin's skyrise office building in Midtown Manhattan. And who's this man getting out of a yellow cab in the pouring rain? Well, the conversation continues between Kingpin and Bullseye. As soon as you settle with Daredevil," says the Kingpin, "we will discuss your future employment." And Bullseye concurs. "You got a deal." But he continues to negotiate as to the terms of the deal. "Meantime, I gotta eat. I'm broke. How's about you advance me 1,000 and give me a place to stay? Big place. I need to practice. As he lights the Kingpin cigar. Kingpin says, my secretary will give you 500. So the Kingpin cuts that figure in half from petty cash. As for quarters, here is the key to a certain property I own. It will serve your needs amply. So it's interesting to see where that is later on in the story. And then we have this element that has been established in previous issues, that there's some kind of strange psychic link between these two bitter foes, whereby they have these headaches when they're in close proximity. And Bullseye recognizes that Daredevil is close by, so now we infer that this is Matt Murdock getting out of the taxi cab, and he goes to meet in the lobby of this building here, where Foggy and he work, where they have their offices. And interesting with the layout here that editorials decided to include this arrow, so we go from this panel to this one rather than down to here. So that's an aspect of the layout of a page that William Johnson needs to work on, so that there's a flow without the requirement of any such arrows. And so there's a bit of business about Foggy having grown a mustache, and of course the fact that Matt can't see it. Really like the detail of all these people in the lobby of the building. And Matt asks Foggy what's been happening in New York. Foggy says, well, let's see, it's been wet. We've had a record rainfall, wettest spring since 1885. Things are normal at the office. So this comic, it's cover dated November 1983, but it came out at the very end of July 1983. And I guess it must have been written and drawn in spring of 1983. So was spring of 1983 one of the wettest in pretty much 100 years in New York City? Anybody remember the wet spring of 1983? Let me know in the comments. And then Foggy holds up the umbrella as Matt gets in the back of the taxi cab here. And Foggy's asking him, so what's the program, Matt? What say we hit Smokies and get some ribs and potato salad and pecan pie? But Matt replies, thanks, but I feel a little jet lagged. I think I'll hit the sack. I'll be in the office tomorrow or the next day. So off he goes, and Foggy's there wondering about how Matt got the broken arm. Then in the basement gym of Matt Murdock's house, we get a pretty cool DeLuca effect there from William Johnson. He's very good at fight choreography and the DeLuca effect. I'm impressed with how he does it. As Matt works through all of the gymnast equipment in his basement, and he realizes someone's here with his radar sense. So who's this female figure descending the steps into the basement? Coming down the stairs, a woman 5 feet 7 inches tall, he thinks weighs 125 pounds, athletic, graceful, and it's the Black Widow. So we haven't seen her since the end of Frank Miller's run on the title, but here she is back again, checking up on Matt. So they're working over the gymnast equipment in the basement, and Natasha says to him that she's concerned about him, whether he should be working out with the bandage on his head and the cast on his arm. And he says, I've got to. And she responds, because Bullseye is recovered, you must have some superpowers, your super senses yourself, he says. I don't need to be super to see the obvious, and I know you well. So Matt responds, you should. Why can't you wait until you're... wait a minute, this is a little bit confusing. He says you should, but you can see there that the speech balloon blends into this one, which is spoken by Natasha because of where the tail is going. So that's a little error there in the lettering. That should have been fixed before it went off to the printers. Never mind. The Black Widow replies, why can't you wait until you're physically fit before chasing after him? So of course, it's obsession. Daredevil responds, no, this thing with Bullseye has gone on too long. He's done too much. She adds, he took a lecture from you? Yes, he did, replies Daredevil. He's killed a lot of people. He won't kill anymore. I'll finish him now today. So Natasha doesn't say anything to that. You know, she's taken by surprise. But she doesn't give him a speech about, you know, the sacredness of all life, including that of homicidal, psychopathic criminals like Bullseye. All she says to him is, then all I can say is be careful. And he replies, I'll try. Even though we're no longer involved, she says to him, I still care for you. And he replies to her, you're a good lady, Black Widow, and you're a good man. But I guess that raises the question of what is it to be a good man, and whether that encompasses killing even a murderer like a Bullseye. So the rain is pouring down. Daredevil makes his way to a bar in Lower Manhattan near the docks. Is it Josie's? It doesn't appear to be. But in there he finds Turk and Grotto, who he always gets his information with, and we always get a little bit of comedy where the toughs in the pub there see that Daredevil has his forearm, his right arm, in a cast, and they decide that Christmas has come early, so they get ready to beat him up. Another really cool DeLuca effect here from William Johnson, as Daredevil easily deals with the toughs, including Turk there, who was about to throw a chair over the back of his head. Bullseye Turk, and Turk just spills. He says a cabbie took him to the Bronx, dropped him a block from the old St. James Arena. So Daredevil thinks to himself, the St. James? Why does that ring a bell? So off he goes, and in the St. James Arena, that's the key that the Kingpin had in his hand and gave to Bullseye. And here it is, this old wrestling arena. And Bullseye's thinking to himself, what a dump. But it suits me. I can practice all day and nobody will hassle me. Course, only got till they tear the joint down next week. But by then, I'll be back to my old form. Perfect. And outside is Daredevil in the trench coat and with the hat. And he thinks to himself, perfect. Smell of decay, sound of rats, feet, sense of desolation, nobody around, nobody to interfere. And when I'm killing Bullseye. So he passes by this poster advertising the Red Devil, a wrestling match. And of course he can't see that because he's blind, but we the readers do. And so it's an interesting juxtaposition of these two devilish figures, and we'll see what the significance is subsequently in the story. So Daredevil makes his way up these rickety stairs. Something familiar about the angle of these steps, he thinks to himself, and the odor of the wet concrete. I've been here before. And then we get the device of Marvel Comics in the Bronze Age in particular, where we've got the curved corners of the panel to indicate that we're flashing back. When I was a child, Daredevil thinks to himself, 4 or 5, not much more than a baby. He ascended those stairs. I was here to watch my father, not fight, not box. No, that night he was wrestling. He was. And then he remembers, it's a shock to him. Oh dear Lord, how could I have forgotten it all these years? He was wearing a costume, a devil costume, and he was wrestling. So could this be the origin, the kind of hidden origin, welling up from Matt's subconscious for his Daredevil costume, not just the nickname that he was mocked by the bullies, the childhood bullies who used to ridicule him, but also the fact that his own father, as it turns out, wore this Red Devil wrestling costume and was ashamed of it. Later I went to see him in the locker room. He was seated all alone and somehow he looked smaller. He was crying. I'd never seen him do that before. I'd seldom seen him show any emotion. So what is the situation here? Why is battling Jack Murdock wrestling when he's supposed to be a prize fighter? Listen, kid, he says, what you seen out there tonight, forget it, because that was something I didn't want to do. I had to earn money. You been sick and there's bills left all over from your ma, and my manager ain't been getting me fights. so I had to put on this stupid suit and make a fool of myself, but I'll never do it again, no matter what. So this is interesting about Matt being sick, just childhood illnesses, one supposes, at the age of 4 or 5, but also the reference to Matt's ma, his mother. And in this particular era, the understanding was that she died, and the implication of what Jack Murdoch is saying there is that she must have spent time in the hospital before dying. But Frank Miller will do something different in the Born Again storyline regarding a revelation concerning Matt's mother. And I wonder, is it contradicted? Is there a tension here in what is being remembered by Matt? But of course, memory's fickle, and we could always earn a no prize by making that argument for consistency with Frank Miller's retroactive continuity. Listen to me, kid, says Jack. Listen good, I'm a fighter and that ain't much. It ain't a profession I'm real proud of, and if you ever even think about it yourself, I'll beat you black and blue. But it's what I do, and I try to do it as best I can. I try to do it honourably. That's the word I'm looking for. I really like that detail in Denny O'Neill's script, where Jack Murdoch, not an educated man, is trying to understand why he himself feels so bad, and it has to do with honour. And so Jack Murdoch is a man for whom honour is important, and that's why he's so upset. Well, tonight I disgraced fighting, and I disgraced myself, he says, and there ain't no money in the world can pay for that. Kid, there's never a reason for not being what you are. And so Daredevil's crying in the present all these years. So the origins of the costume, that he wanted to honour his father by wearing the costume and redeem him from the disgrace of wrestling. And, obviously wrestling is, costume wrestling. It's all scripted. So in a sense, he was throwing fights according to the script, which would ultimately factor into his killing when he decided not to throw a fight and lost the mafia money on account of it. And again, that was all about honour and being what you are rather than what someone else tells you to be. And then in the present, the showdown we've been waiting for. But the memory of Matt's father there and his commitment to honour and his horror of disgrace has got to factor in to Daredevil's determination to kill Bullseye, right? So Bullseye's there at the top of the stairs mocking Daredevil. Live and in person, he says, to say nothing of glowing colour. And Daredevil comes up the stairs going for his billy club. I was afraid of this moment, not because I fear you, but because the past several weeks I felt somehow connected to you. I was afraid that connection would overwhelm me, that I'd be overcome with compassion. I'm not. So Bullseye, of course, me either, Pally says, and to prove it, he takes off this piece of this weaponry from his belt. I'm going to deal you these little gimmicks. I ever show you these? So he throws it at Daredevil, who deflects them with the billy club. You're a bit slow, Bullseye, he says. Age getting to you. So Bullseye runs off. Daredevil follows him up the stairs. I think this is really well drawn by William Johnson. But he won't be, he says, he'll be waiting for me, but he won't be expecting me to take the aerial route. So another cool DeLuca effect here as Daredevil somersaults away from Bullseye's weapons. Not bad for a guy with a busted arm, says Bullseye. How'd that happen? My pal Darkwind do that to you? And this was on account of the earthquake at the end of the previous issue. With a little help from an earthquake, he says, you all out of your nasty toys? Yeah, but don't worry, says Bullseye. I got lots of other goodies stashed around, like this, for instance. So he throws this blade right between Daredevil's legs, and the fight continues. You're getting fancy, says Daredevil. You used to stick to American weapons, guns and knives. And Bullseye replies, a guy's got to keep improving his skills, Now, there's a lot of work from Johnson here with these tiered seats in the arena. That's difficult to draw. That takes time. That takes work. Gridding out the perspective as well. So he deserves praise for that level of work. But you can see also that he's got no backgrounds on these two pages. So the time he spent for the detail of the seating, he's getting the pages done with no backgrounds here in order to meet the deadline, which was of course very important in the 1980s under Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief, getting the monthly books out each and every 30 days. So here is Bullseye going for another stashed weapon, the sigh here, and he starts to taunt Daredevil. Recognize this, it belonged to Elektra. I ran one just like it straight through her. You should have heard her, pal. Whimpered like a baby. So Matt doesn't say anything. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? He throws it at him, and Daredevil catches it in his hand and sends it right back at Bullseye, catching him in the shoulder. Pretty good, says Bullseye, pulling out the sigh. Almost as good as I would have done it, only I would have aimed for the heart. And Daredevil replies, I did, I missed. Kicks him in the jaw there, swinging over the ropes of the ring. That's really well done. Perspective there, the foreshortening by William Johnson, good stuff. Fight choreography's good. Bullseye here goes for his gun. You just made your last mistake, chump. You should have knocked me into the other corner where I didn't have this. So he shoots Daredevil. Of course, I could have put that one between your eyes, but I wanted to talk to you a little more. You're going to listen. Remember that time you pulled me out of the way of the subway train, saved my life? I hated you for that. I didn't want you doing me no favors. Then you dropped me from the top of the wire after I iced Elektra, shattered my spine. That was okay. But then you snuck into my hospital room with a gun, and I figured, okay, he's going to finish what he started, but you didn't. You blabbed at me for an hour about your old man and a lot of other stuff, and you walked away without shooting, treated me like dirt, like I wasn't worth killing. Well, I'm doing the same for you. Letting you live. Only every time I do a job, every time I ice somebody, I'm going to make sure you hear about it. I know you, pal. I've been inside your head, and that's the worst thing I can do to you. Just let you live knowing you're responsible for everything I do, because you didn't take your shot when you had it. So long, chump, he says as he turns his back on Daredevil. So here it comes. References there to key moments in Frank Miller's run on Daredevil regarding the enmity between Bullseye and Daredevil. The final reference there to issue 191, Miller's last issue of the original run. And here we have Daredevil getting up and exclaiming no. So is this going to bring us to the moment depicted on the cover? Is he going to break Bullseye's neck? Well, he throws the billy club at him, hits him in the back of the head, is leaping there for Bullseye, and throws him back in the ring. He says, no more, you hear me, no more. He's got his throat exposed there. It ends Bullseye here and now. It has to end. Is he going to twist his neck? He gets the billy club right under his throat here and now. He's putting pressure on him. He's going to choke him out. Kill him? Forget it, kid. It's the ghost of his father. I disgrace myself, and there ain't no money in the world can pay for that. There's never a reason for not being what you are. So his father's words are haunting him, even as he wrestles with the decision of whether to kill Bullseye once and for all. I'm no killer, he concludes. Turn the page. Get past the advertisements. Last page, 22 pages of story and art in this issue. And so a final speech from Daredevil. The burden I've been feeling all these months, it's not that I didn't succeed in killing you, it's that I tried to. I'm not a killer, he says. So he's the good man that Natasha called him. Out he walks into the rain. The police are there. There's a wanted man inside, murderer. He won't give you any trouble. He's unconscious. And the police say, you look pretty bad. You better get to a doctor. I'll call an ambulance. No ambulance, he says. I'll be fine. And he walks out in the pouring rain. And there's the poster of his father, the Red Devil, taking on whoever that is. From a decade earlier or more even. So an interesting 200th story. We don't get what was promised on the cover. One page of letters there. We don't get what was promised on the cover. A final showdown between Daredevil and Bullseye. And so the question is, are you disappointed? Is it a cop-out to have this cover and not give us this moment inside the comic itself? Or is Daredevil's determination to not disgrace himself, to remain who he is, and that is not a killer? Is that an ending that we might call an uplifting one, even though we know that Bullseye in the future is going to continue killing people? But we don't see Bullseye in the Daredevil comic for quite some time. This is the last of Bullseye and Daredevil until issue 284, written by Ann Nocenti, and if memory serves, illustrated by Lee Weeks. So it would be many years before the character would return. And in that regard, this image is symbolic of the fact that he's symbolically dead. Done with him. The whole Bullseye Daredevil arc, started by Frank Miller in earnest, is concluded here by Denny O'Neil, and it will be, as I said, many years before the character returns to the title. So let me know what you thought of this issue in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.